You're ready to buy a house and I'm ready to show you how. Let's get into it. Hey, how you doing? Derek here from M1 Realty. I'm the broker, owner, founder of the company. Started this company in 2014. It was just myself and a laptop on the third floor of an office building here in Ferndale, Michigan. Fast forward to today, I've got the #1 biggest, baddest real estate office in the city of Ferndale. I've got an all-star team. Whether you're looking to buy, sell, invest, rent, whatever you need, we've got you covered. We even do property management now. So in Metro Detroit, it's the end of February. We are just starting the very beginning of home buying season. So I figured what better time to kind of recap the steps that you need to take as potentially, whether you're a first-time buyer or you've bought a bunch of homes. It's always a good idea to kind of brush up on the process, get familiar with it so you know what to expect when it's time to start looking at homes, writing offers, and end up with that dream home that's going to be a fantastic place for you to live and a wonderful investment vehicle to build equity, build wealth, and help you on your journey of life. So let's get into it. And the way I look at this, I kind of break it down into about a 7-step process. So we'll start right at the beginning. Step 1 is get your financing in order way before you think you're ready to buy a home. So even if you're several months out from thinking you want to buy, always a good idea to just call that lender, get the ball rolling there, get your ducks in a row. That way, if there is anything crazy that comes up, they'll run your a credit check on you, take a look at your financials. If there's anything that needs to be cleaned up, we have plenty of time to take care of it. So the last thing you want to do is be like, I'm ready to go, or even if you found like the perfect dream home that's just absolutely right for you that you want to write an offer on, and then you go get pre-approved and then you find out there's an issue, now too bad, so sad. You're not going to get that house because we didn't start with enough lead time. And a massively important part of this process, right? And this is going to be on you, is to come up with your budget. Now this is going to be different from the amount that you are pre-approved for because I do, this happens to be all the time. I work with a ton of buyers who are approved for way more than they ever end up spending, because the most important thing is not the, hey, I'm approved for $300,000 or $350 or $150 or $500, whatever. Like, that dollar amount is completely irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. What is the monthly payment that you want to spend every month that's within your budget? That's the most important thing. So that's what you need to come up with, and then we can kind of like reverse engineer everything else around it so that at no point in time, when you're buying a home, like in the grand scheme of things, what you're really doing is making usually a 30-year commitment to make payments every month on this property. We want to make sure that you're not going to be house poor. We want to make sure that's a comfortable payment to make, something that's easily well within your budget, so that you're not at any point in time going to be scrambling around, stressing out, having to make your house payment, let alone, money to live on. So that's the most important thing. Come up with your ideal budget. Now, if we need to, we can change that around a little bit. We'll see. But ideally, we want to stick within that budget, and we want to make sure that we're working with a lender partner who respects that as well. Like, I don't personally work with lenders where they pressure somebody to spend more just because they can, because this isn't about the one commission check that I'm going to get or that lender, that loan officer is going to get. This is about you, and for the next 30 years, every single month, making a payment that is comfortable for you. So piggybacking on step 1, getting that mortgage ball rolling. Number 2 is just to get organized. So when you it's fine just to talk to a lender and just have that initial conversation, get things rolling. They're going to take care of the credit on their end. They're going to run a credit report. A good lender won't run a full-on, tri-merge full report right from the get-go. They're just going to run like a basic credit report that I think that only goes to like one of the credit bureaus, just to get an idea of where you're at on credit. Now that's got a couple different advantages. Number 1, it doesn't cost a ton of money to do. I mean, I think a full tri-merge is up to like $75 or $100 now. So it's silly to like pay that money just to to find out something that we can find out for a couple bucks doing just the one through the one credit bureau. Number two, when they do that tri-merge of all three credit bureaus, all of a sudden that's when you're when they start selling your information to different lenders, and you're going to get bombarded with phone calls from, you know, Lending Tree and all these other sources. Like, you know, we're going to avoid all that craziness happening too. All we're trying to do right now is just kind of find out what your basic ballpark credit score is, so that we can accurately quote you what a typical rate's going to be and what you can expect as far as a monthly payment. Now, the thing that you need to do on your end is start getting together like a couple years of W-2s. Not every lender is going to require that, but I would have it ready just in case. They're almost definitely going to want to see the last 2 months worth of pay stubs, or almost definitely going to want to see the last 2 months of bank statements. Maybe even more. But for starters, just get those compiled, have them in a spot where you can easily access them. And nowadays, like, you don't really have to bring anything to a lender. It's just uploading things to a portal for the most part. So it makes it a little bit easier, but you need to know where all that stuff is in order to just, you know, make it a quick process on your end. So now we got our financing in place. We kind of have a budget in mind for what we want to spend on a monthly payment. Now it's time to find an agent. So, you know, if you're in the Metro Detroit market, I sincerely hope you'd give me a call. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is that you are working with an agent that you're comfortable with, that you have a good rapport with, somebody that knows what they're doing, is going to be able to take the time, explain the process to you, do some real digging to find the right property for you. Is somebody that is, you know, their schedule is flexible. The last thing you want to do is find the perfect house and then they're not available to show it to you for 2 days. And in this market, that house might be gone. So, you know, I always tell my clients, like, if you see something that you like and you're stuck at work or whatever, let me know. 9 times out of 10, I can get there, you know, the same day, and at least, you know, let you know what's going on with that property, even if you're not able to make it at that point in time. So that's super important. And then somebody who can negotiate strongly on your behalf, because not every agent can, which is great for me, because whenever I deal with those people, my clients end up loving life because we get what we want. But you need to have somebody that's fighting for you on your end so that you get what you want as well. So that's a super important thing. So far we've gotten our documents together, we've gotten that pre-approval, and now we found an agent. So let's start house shopping. All right, step 4, finding a house. So there's several different ways we can do this. There's not really a wrong way. I mean, I've had it where, you know, I've had clients just drive down the street, see a for sale sign in the yard of a house that's not even on the market yet. So all I have to do is go in and set an alert so that when it does hit the market, I get notified immediately. My buyer knows immediately. We're the first ones in that house as soon as it hits the market. You know, pretty much everything that we will send you is, you're not going to be able to find. Let me back up. You're not going to find anything on like a Zillow type site or Realtor.com or Purchase Experts or any of those other sites that we won't be able to set you up on a custom home search with. There's not, you know, the MLS is where all those other sites draw their information from. So aside from, you know, if it's a for sale by owner, that's another story. That usually won't be listed on the MLS. Sometimes it will be, most often not. That would be the only exception to that rule. Like if we set you up with a custom home search with a property alert, whatever, you're gonna have the most up-to-date, accurate information. There's nothing from any other secondary site that's going to give you more accurate information. So once we get really rolling and we're identifying the kind of properties that you want to look at and the areas that you want to look at and the price range that you want to look at, I would just rely on one source. You know, ideally that's going to be directly from the MLS, and that way you're not, you know, you're just going to be redundant. You're going to be seeing the same properties on several different platforms, so it doesn't really benefit you at all. If anything, it just, you know, kind of can get confusing. So I would just say stick with the property alerts. I think from the ones that we send out now, you can actually create your own search within there. So if it's something that your agent hasn't set up exactly for you, you can actually go in and set up any kind of search that you want. Also, like our website, m1realty.net, is linked directly to the MLS as well, so you can do, you can search anything, any property in Michigan off of our site as well. So, and everything on there is accurate and up to date and updates in real time. So it's a couple different good options there, but that's what I recommend sticking with, is just go by the property alerts, because at least what I do and what I've trained my agents to do is to start out kind of broad, and then as we start zeroing in on the type of home that you really want and the type of location, we can kind of narrow down that search, so we're not sending you all these other homes that you're not interested in. We can just kind of focus in on the ones that you are interested in and kind of weed everything else out. All right, on to step 5, making an offer. So we found the right house. This is one that checks off all your boxes, you're excited about, you want to, you can see yourself living in this home for the however many years that you're going to be there for. So what are we going to do next? So the first thing we do as agents is we will get the disclosures from the listing agent, and what that does is the lead-based paint disclosure will just say if the seller has any records or any knowledge of any lead-based paint in the house. 99% of the time they don't, so no big deal. And if a house is built 1979 or after, it's going to be certified lead-free anyway, so there really won't be a lead-based paint disclosure. The seller's disclosure is another story. Unless the house is a foreclosure or a probate, or I think those are really the only two ways that it would be exempt. You're going to get, to the best of that seller's knowledge, everything that's going on in the property. So it's going to check off, hey, does the refrigerator work? Does the furnace work? Is it city water, city sewer, or is it well and septic? Has the roof ever leaked? Has the foundation ever leaked? Things like that. So that's super important, because before we even write the offer, that gives you a little bit of knowledge of what's going on with that property. So say, hey, when there's extremely heavy rain, sometimes the basement seeps. Like, that's kind of common in certain areas around town. So, but maybe, you're planning on finishing that basement. So maybe now that might not be a house that we want, or maybe we want to think about offering less, or maybe we want to like build in, waterproofing into the budget. There's several different ways we can go about that, but we don't know it until we see the disclosure. So we're going to get that. We're going to write up that offer based on those disclosures, or partially based on them. And we're going to get a pre-approval. Ideally, our lender partner, at least the partners that I work with, will send you a pre-approval for the exact amount that we're offering. Reason being, if we're looking at houses that are $250,000 and you're approved for $325,000, that seller doesn't need to know that, especially if we're not offering full price. They don't need to know that you're approved for a penny more than what we're offering. So for that reason, that's why we do that. But we're going to put all our other terms together. We're going to let that seller know, hey, we're going with a conventional mortgage. We're going to put 20% down, or whatever the case is, or it could be FHA with 3.5% down. You name it. We'll tell them what our earnest money deposit amount's going to be, whether we want an inspection, you better get one, and how many days we want for that contingency. We want a warranty deed, the whole 9 yards. Like, all of our terms are going to that offer, and then we submit it to the seller. All right, so step 6 then is going to be, so now we've gotten that house under contract, the seller accepted our terms, we're good to go. Now what happens next? Now is our time for inspections, appraisals, and underwriting. So we're under contract at this point. They can't sell that house to anybody else. We've got a legally binding contract saying that they have to sell that property to you at these price and terms. But we're putting in that typically it's a 7-day inspection contingency. It doesn't have to be. It could be whatever the two parties agree upon. But the most common is about 7 days. So we're going to do all of our due diligence within that 7-day period. So what does that mean? That is going to be, you can check with the city. You can do a FOIA request at the city. Make sure there's not any kind of crazy like unpaid or assessments or anything like permits that have been pulled and never closed out, things like that. That's what that's going to tell you. We're also going to do our private home inspection, and we've gone over inspections quite a bit, but that covers comprehensively every system in the house. It lets you know what you're getting yourself into. They'll check the furnace and the plumbing and the electrical and the foundation, attic, the whole 9 yards. If anything comes up on that inspection report that is in excess of normal wear and tear, something that's not to your liking, within that 7-day period, that's when we have our opportunity to renegotiate the contract if we're able to or if we need to. Now, the seller's not always going to agree to that, but that gives us our opportunity. So maybe, I don't know, maybe we find out that the basement leaks and the seller doesn't want to do anything about it. So, you know, maybe it's in your best interest to back out of that deal and move on to the next house. You know, that's definitely something that we could do at that point. So that's really what our inspection period is all about. So once we're past that, really the next step, then at that point the lender is going to order the appraisal. Now what the appraisal does, it's not an inspection. A lot of people get the two terms confused. So the inspection is basically, that's for you, that's your private inspection. That is somebody going through the house with a fine-tooth comb, making sure that all the systems are functional and or letting you know what basically what you're getting yourself into with that property. The appraisal, the purpose of that is so the bank that's lending you the money to buy the house is confident that that house is worth what they're lending. So if it's a $250,000 home and the appraisal comes back at $230,000, we're going to have to renegotiate that contract, or you're going to have to bring extra money to the closing over and above. You're going to have to bring that $20,000 out of pocket, or at that point we just renegotiate the deal or you back out. I mean, those are our options at that point. Generally speaking, we're not going to run into that too often. Certain lenders are there's going to be more prevalent than not for appraisal issues, but generally speaking, I rarely run into them. We've got a couple different reasons for that, which if you're curious, just give me a call or text and I'll explain that to you. But typically speaking, we don't really run into those issues. The only thing that I'll put a caveat on that, if you're approved for an FHA or a VA mortgage, then there's another little extra step to that. The appraiser will not only determine the value of the property, but they're also going to be looking for any like safety issues that need to be addressed with the house. Specifically, this isn't 100% all encompassing, but generally speaking, the most common things they look for are peeling paint, gaps like concrete, trip hazards, or missing handrails. Those are like the three big ones. And it could be any other little nonsense that they come up with. It's the appraiser at that point. They're driving the bus. Whatever they want done, we're going to do. But typically speaking, that's what we're looking for. So we're looking for the value and that the house is move-in ready and safe to live in. On a conventional mortgage, it's usually only that the house is worth what you're going to pay for it. So that's our steps there. Now the only, like the last piece of that is underwriting. Now what that is, that's somebody that works for the lender and their job is to go over this entire file with a fine-tooth comb. They're going to dot all the I's, they're not going to do anything. They're going to make sure all the I's are dotted. They're going to make sure all the T's are crossed, and that every document that you've provided to that loan officer, your bank statements, your W-2s, your 1099 if you're self-employed like me, they're going to make sure that all that information is accurate. If there's any discrepancies, they're going to want an explanation. If you're getting a gift for your down payment, they're going to need to document where that money came from. Things like that. Their whole job is to protect the lender. Long story short, it's all about making sure there's no drug money used to finance the property, because at that point they're not in first lien possession anymore. If the government seizes the house, they're out of luck, and they don't want to be out of luck. So they're going to make sure that the money that they're lending is protected, and that's really what it's all about. But that being said, that's usually like the last step before we get clear to close is taking care of any underwriting conditions. So that can be a little annoying, a little bit frustrating depending on the underwriter. You might that's why I say get your stuff organized. That way you have it handy and it's easy to get access to, because I've had it before where people have had to send the same bank statement to 3 different people. So why they don't communicate with each other, I have no idea. My lenders, we usually don't have that problem. But we just want to make sure that whatever they need, we get it to them quickly, because at that point in time, any hour that they're waiting for documentation or an explanation is an hour that we don't have a clear to close yet. And considering that there is a time, time is of the essence here. Like, we could be getting up close to our contract closing date. And we don't ever want to put your earnest money deposit at jeopardy. So that's one of those things where the faster we get them what they need, the faster we have that clear to close, and then your earnest money is not anything we have to worry about. All right, last step is, so let's recap here. We've gotten our pre-approval, we've gotten all of our documentation in order, we're really, really smart, and we had Derek go out and find us a house. We've gotten our home under contract, we've negotiated out all the price and terms, we've had our inspection done, appraisal came back at value, we're good to go there. The underwriter got everything they need. They've issued us a clear to close. Our final step is just to close on the house. So depending on what state you're in, you'll either close at a closing attorney's office or at a title company. And in Michigan, it's title company. We don't have attorneys write our offers and negotiate them and all that stuff. We're not an attorney state. We're a title company state. So the title company's job is to, number one, make sure that the seller of that property can actually sell it, that they're the actual owner who can convey that property to you. And one of the ways that they do that is to provide title insurance, so that if anything ever comes up with the title, you're covered as the new owner, and the old owner is covered as well. So I mean, we're good to go there. But they make it easy. They conduct the closing. We don't necessarily have to get together in the same room with both parties. Like a lot of times now, the seller will have a different title company from the buyer. So for example, I had a closing today, and it was just myself and the buyer and our closer, and the seller and the seller's agent and the seller's title company were actually closing at the same time in Ann Arbor. It just was more convenient to do it that way for both parties, rather than make somebody travel in between or whatever. So 50% of the time we do it that way. The other 50% of the time, everybody just gets together at a closing table, we sign it, and we're good. So essentially at the closing, you're gonna have a stack of papers that thick to sign. So be ready. But the closer will go. Let me back up for 1 second. A good agent will go over all of your docs with you prior to the closing, and we don't always have access to everything. And like some of it's just like internal, title company CYA type docs. So they usually won't send us that ahead of time, but we'll get the settlement statements where every single line item, every charge and every credit is itemized there. And that way we can go over it with you the day before or 2 days before, or sometimes we don't get it until the day of. But prior to actually sitting down at the closing table, you should know exactly what the numbers are, what you're signing. You'll know the numbers because you will typically have to have wired the amount that you need to bring to closing in. And I recommend doing it the day before or the morning of, as early, like as soon as the bank opens, get that wire out, because it's not like a Venmo or a Zelle type thing. Like it's an actual ABA wire transfer that has to go through the Federal Reserve and then go back to the wherever you're sending it. So that process could take a few hours, in worst case scenario. But at any rate, you will have gone over everything. You're going to be comfortable knowing exactly what the charges are, what the credits are, how much you need to bring, what your monthly payment's going to be, all that good stuff. At the closing table, the closer's still going to go over all that stuff with you, just in case your agent didn't. But they're going to sit there and walk you through all the docs that you're signing. So it's typically going to be, settlement statements, the closing disclosure, and the other title company. If it's two separate title companies, they're going to have some duplicate docs. I mean, it is what it is. You're going to sign some of the same stuff twice because they're going to have it on their form. Your title company is going to have it on their form as well. So it's a good time to get writer's cramp. The mortgage itself typically is, I think in Michigan, is like 13 pages. It's boilerplate. No changes can be made to it. But that basically just says you're going to, you're going to repay the mortgage according to the terms of that were agreed upon. You're not going to store nuclear waste in the backyard. You're always going to keep up on your payments, things like that. So it's pretty standard, pretty obvious what you're going to be signing. But the whole process from start to finish at the closing table usually takes 45 minutes to an hour. Sometimes it's a little quicker than that. I've had them take a few hours before, and that can get a little stressful. Everybody just wants it done, and there's usually some stupid holdup somewhere along the line. to get it resolved. But, you know, the worst case scenario, it'll take a couple hours. Sometimes we have to close in escrow, meaning that the closing's done, but say you didn't get your wire out in time, and it's, you know, if we have a late in the day closing on a Tuesday or something like that, the funds might not get to the title company before the title company closes, in which case closing an escrow just means that the next day when that wire hits, that's when everything disperses. You get the keys, the seller gets their check, the agents get paid, the whole 9 yards. So that's all that means. But aside from that, I mean, that's really it. There's not a whole lot more to it, guys. So if you do have any questions about any of these steps or just need a little more clarification, anything I can do to help you, direct line, as always, you can call or text me at 586-491-5622. You can also reach me at 248-561-6155. Email dwerenka@m1realty.net. I'm on, you know, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it, I'm on it. Just shoot me a DM. I'll respond quick. And as always, thank you so much for watching these, guys. I really appreciate it. If there is ever anything I can do for you, just say the word, reach out, and we'll see you next week. And thanks so much. Talk soon.